The weekend assignment for our last live stream was to add an additional IP address to an existing Linux interface. Now, it's pretty ambiguous. There's so many different ways you can do that, either temporarily or permanently. In the live stream, we went over a bunch of different ways to do it on different distributions. What I've done is trimmed out just a section where we go over the solution, and that's what this video is. So if you missed the live stream, that's all right. You can see the solution to the weekend assignment. Enjoy. Weekend assignment 18 is to add a secondary IP address to an existing network interface on your Linux system and to make sure that that IP address sticks between boots. This is the kind of thing where we covered it. We covered some things during the Linux Plus objective from earlier in the week, which is linked in this right here. This is the link to that video, but it didn't cover really adding a secondary link. So you had to do a little bit of Googling. So let's get this out of the way. So there's two things. I want to show you how to do it temporarily. So you can add an IP and have it not stick in configuration. So like if you just need to temporarily add an IP address, you can do that with the IP tools. Now you can do it with ifconfig on an older system as well. But IP using the, what is it? IP route 2 or route 2? I think it's IP route 2 tool set where IP is the main tool. That's pretty much the way that makes the most sense. So let me get our, so this is Rocky Linux 8. And I did that because in Rocky Linux 8, Network Manager stores its configuration file in this folder so you can see it. And I just want to show you, but the same procedures we're gonna use should work on the other versions of Red Hat based stuff as well. So if we do IPA, it's going to show us our beer because IPA is a good beer. No, that's not true. IPA is gross. IP space A or IP space address will show you the addresses on the system. This is our network card on the computer, ENP1S0, and this is the IP address that it is currently assigned, 10.0.2.15 with a 24-bit netmask. And so if we want to add a temporary thing, we can just use the IP tool. So we can say sudo, you have to be root to manipulate the interfaces. So sudo IP A, or we can type it all out, ADRESS, and then add the IP address that we want to add. So in our case, let's do 10.11.12.13 as the IP address, and then / and then the CIDR notation for the net mask. So 24. If this doesn't make sense, so /24 is the same as 255.255.255.0 if you're familiar with net masks presented in that format. But anyway, this is the IP address and the net mask that we're going to do. And then we have to say what we're going to add that to. Well, the device, DEV, is this one up here, the EN blah, 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 blah. And so I think we can autocomplete that too. Let's see, ENP. Yeah. So if you do ENP and hit tab autocomplete, as long as that's the only matching thing, it's like doesn't have a conflict, you can tab and type the whole thing out. So if we do that, it's going to ask for my password, which makes sense because it's a sudo command. And now I'll clear the screen just so there's no confusion. If we do IP A or IP address, now we see down here we have this is our original one that's been set in the configuration. And this is the one that we just added. And so now on this network, we could participate in that network if we're connected to it. So we can temporarily do that. But if we were to restart, or in this case, since this is right here, I'll turn off our network, turn on our network. If we look at IP address now, it's gone. And that's because I just did it temporarily, right? I just added a secondary address. Let's see what the question. Sebastian, are you creating some kind of VLAN? No, all I'm doing is adding a secondary IP address to one interface. And I think maybe it's important to mention that the old way of doing this used to be you create a virtual interface. Like it used to be that every Ethernet or every Ethernet card was called ETH0 and your second one was called ETH1. Now they're based on like the type of Ethernet cards and what slot in the motherboard they're on. But you used to do like ETH0, and then if you wanted to add a secondary address, you would do :0 and create this virtual device and assign an address there. But now the preferred method for doing it is you just add another address to the same device. So the same device has 2 IP addresses, and that's generally just the way that you do that. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, no, not doing anything with a VLAN here, just creating a secondary IP address on that thing. But like I said, that's temporary. Using the IP command, that's temporary. And now, if we wanted to make it permanent, on Rocky Linux here, or Red Hat Linux, you can do a couple things. So if you're on version 8, we could actually edit this file in the network scripts folder. So if we look at it, this is the file. We can just edit this and add an IP address. But since it changes where the information is stored, I don't recommend actually changing the configuration file. That's normally what I would do in years past. And I like a good config file like anybody else. But now, either you can use the GUI tool, but I don't like to rely on that. We can use nmcli, which is probably the way to go about doing it. So in order to make a change like this permanent, using Network Manager, which is what is handling the network card here, using the command line nmcli, what we would do is we would say sudo nmcli. First, just type con for connection, and it's going to show us that is our Ethernet card, right? ENP1S0. And so then we can do that connection. We want to modify it, and then the name of it, which is ENP1S0, we want to plus, so we're adding a configuration with the plus command here, IPv4.address, and this is all going to be in the man page or the help file. Steve, this is for any system that is using Network Manager right now. So nmcli is the Network Manager command line interface. So if it's using Network Manager to manage its network interfaces, this is how you can permanently make a change. And so we're adding the IP address, and then we'll just do 10.11.12.13/24, and that should change the configuration. So press enter. Now it's made the configuration. Since this is Rocky version 8 or Red Hat version 8, it has saved that configuration to the file. So we could actually look at the file to see what it did, and it just added the IP address field. And the reason it's just IP address is because it's already getting a DHCP address for the first IP address, and then this is like the secondary one. So what we can do is say, we'll use nmcli n, for network, and then we'll say off, we'll turn it off, and then turn it on. And that's the thing, it doesn't apply it automatically. So the command up that we did, up there where we added the plus IPv4.address, that doesn't activate it. In order to activate it, you need to turn it off and then back on, or restart your computer. And now if we do IPA, we're going to see that we have that secondary address, and also the initial one that we got via DHCP. It's still there, but we've added that permanently. Now, if you want to get rid of it, you can use the same type of command, just do minus instead of plus. And so let me go up. So this command, I just pushed the up thing to go back through a bash history. Instead of plus, we can do minus. And now if we look at the file, we're going to see that it's gone, right? It got rid of that. But in order to activate it, because right now it's still active, but if we want to do sudo nmcli network off, and then on, and then IPA, we're going to see that we've made that change permanent. And now when it reboots or restarts the network service, it's not going to be active. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. But now it is a little bit different on a server that doesn't use Network Manager kind of thing. So I'm logged into, actually, this is a server on my local network. Pookie is a server in my home, and it's running Ubuntu server 2204. It's headless. And so it has NetPlan. and as the way that it handles its network configuration, which I mentioned in that video briefly. But inside here, there's going to be a YAML file, and we can do the exact same thing to temporarily add it. So if we do IPA, we're going to see, I mean, I have lots of stuff. I have Docker running on this, so there's lots of virtual interfaces. And there's also 2 physical cards, but this one up here is like the standard, this is like the Ethernet one that's plugged into the wall. And so this is the IP address on my local network of this main interface on the computer. If we wanted to add another IP address to this, we could use IPA, or IP address, and then add it just like we did in Rocky Linux using IP. But if you want to make it permanent, there is no, see if we do nmcli, it's going to say, I don't have that installed because it doesn't use Network Manager. It uses NetPlan. And so here is the file. We can edit this. And if we edit this file, this is using YAML, so indentation matters. But all you would do is go here, make sure it lines up, 192.168.1.7, we'll say, /24, save this file, and then do netplan apply. And now if we do IPA and scroll up to that main interface up here, we'll see that we have this IP address and this IP address, and that's going to stick on reboots because I put it in that file. It's different. So in Red Hat, it's going to use the nmcli, but in Ubuntu, it doesn't use that. On a headless server, it's just going to use the netplan file. If you remember in that video that we went over, if you have an Ubuntu system with a GUI installed, it still uses NetPlan, but NetPlan just points to Network Manager, and then you can manage things with Network Manager. But on a headless system, NetPlan is all there is. And so you're going to edit this YAML file in order to make that change permanent. So I think that covers quite a bit. Hopefully it makes sense how you would go about doing it on whatever system you might have, but it also required a little bit of Googling. So I think that's a bonus as well. So I'll call that the solution. Hopefully everybody's happy with that.